All right, we're good in recording. So, thank everyone for being here for our last session of our Future in Flight series. My name is Dallas Wabington, and I'm the coordinator for the online student experience here at UNT. I help overlook this Future in Flight series, which focuses on career development and preparing for life after graduation. And so today we're going to be focusing on career planning for non-traditional students. This is open up to anyone, but this session is geared more specifically towards non-traditional students. So students who, have already have experience, are established in their careers, and may not necessarily fit that typical 18 to 21 range. Um, so, like I said, this is hosted by the Online Student Experience, but we are co-hosted today from with someone from the UNT Career Center. So I'll introduce him a little bit later. And then you guys may have seen it in the chat, but if you feel comfortable introducing yourself there and just sharing what your favorite emoji is, I just think it's a fun way to kind of get an idea that's not necessarily a who are you, what's your major kind of icebreaker. So, like I mentioned, this is the last session for our Future in Flight series. If you have attended any of our sessions, or if you have any feedback after this session, we greatly would appreciate any sort of input, information you have on the excuse me, I've lost my words today. On the screen is the QR code. Um, there we go. And this is just a quick, simple Microsoft form. It should take about 1 to 2 minutes to complete. And we appreciate any sort of feedback or any recommendations that you might have for this series and what would better help you prepare for post-graduation. And then I'll also bring this up later on, and I'll also include the link to this in the chat later on. All right, so just some upcoming events that OSC is putting on. This Friday, we are hosting a mystery trivia night. This is hosted by one of our own graduate students, Ethan. And so that one's just going to be pretty fun, come and go. Just a little fun activity before we know we get into the run of finals. And then this upcoming Monday, I'm hosting a virtual grad cap decorating event. So basically, whether you're coming in person or you just want to have some sort of virtual grad cap if you're an online student, this is a fun way to kind of get that situated, maybe even print it out in your local area, depending if you're interested. And then next week on Friday, one of our students is hosting a game room night. It's just an easy peasy gaming event. And then if you are graduating this semester or this summer, or you know someone who has graduated within this past fall semester, we are hosting our very first virtual grad celebration for online students. Um, so the QR code to register is on the right side of the screen. Basically, if you are graduating, yes, if you're graduating soon, this is basically an opportunity to get recognized. So we'll have a speech from one of the UNT executive team members. We'll also have speeches and resources provided by the Career Center and the Alumni Association. And all registered graduates also receive a bunch of little UNT goodies from us, and we ship it out to you if you're not local. And so if you're interested, I'll also drop the link in the chat later on, but the QR code is available on your screen. All right, and just wanted to provide again some information of keeping in track with UNT, keeping in track with OSC, and then you may have noticed this little guy in the corner. If you're not too familiar with OSC and what we do, one of the things we have is an honor cord program for online students, and so attending events like this, completing on-demand content in our Canvas course are some ways that you can earn points towards your honor cord. If you earn 100 points, then you automatically earn your free honor cord and it's pretty easy to earn it. I mean, for you just being here today, you automatically earn 20 points for the Honor Code program. And so if you are interested in registering or learning more about it, you can just check it out on our website at oc.unt.edu. Or you can also just message me, email me, whatever your preferences or any questions you may have. And then again, on the bottom right-hand corner is the feedback QR code for any sort of recommendations or feedback you have for Future in Flight. All right, I'm going to turn my turn my mic off, and I will pass it over to the actual speaker from the UNT Career Center.
Well, hello everyone. So nice to be able to be with you this afternoon. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you all about a topic that's not frequently talked about at the dinner table, and that is, creating your career plan. And uh, really, this is about getting you to think about how, what next steps will you take, how will you do it, and what kind of things will you engage in to be able to have a successful um, have a successful pathway in your future. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and then get going with the presentation. So give me 1 second. All right. Can you all see my presentation, Dallas?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am Ole. I am the career coach for accounting, business analytics, and business computer information systems. So I have a lot of experience with these specific majors, but just a lot of career experience in general. So if you do have questions, feel free to come off mute and ask questions along the way. I'd be happy to guide you through those. And I do also I put a QR code on the screen. Right now, we're working on our website and we're transitioning to a new platform. So it may not work right this second, but I encourage you to take a screenshot of that. And also, I'd be happy to email it to Dallas so that way she has it and can email it to you all. And it's just a nice guide to be able to use through your time here at UNT to be able to plan your overall experience. So, what is the workshop purpose for today? Well, today we're going to build an actionable career plan for your post graduation goals, connect your career experience in graduate studies, as well as understand what employers value in the current labor market and align your next career move with the skills-based hiring trends. And now I'm going to explain why that's important here in just a moment. One of the most important questions that you can ask yourself is, what does career plan look like for me, right? In this case, for you. And when I ask this question to different students, of course, I get different answers. But I think it's important to acknowledge that as post-grad students, non-traditional students, you bring a lot of extensive real-world experience, existing industry knowledge, and established responsibilities, and a clear sense of urgency and purpose. So, as Dallas mentioned, anyone can join this session. But if this applies to you, feel free to let me know in the chat what resonates with you. And then if there is something that Dallas feels appropriate to share, I would love to hear about it as I go through this presentation. But the idea is that the insight that I want you to take away is non-traditional students report higher confidence in being career ready compared to traditional students, 61% to 54%. But overall, they're less engaged in traditional career services. So in the Career Center at UNT, we offer different type of services. We offer resume reviews, we offer mock interviewing, we offer job search assistance and internship assistance for credit and not for credit. But on top of that, we also offer professional pictures. We have spaces in the UNT Career Center that you can use for virtual interviews. You can even print your own free business cards in the UNT Career Center in Sage 216. So there's a lot of resources that are available to you. And so today's workshop is really about introducing you to those and also getting you engaged with those career services, because we find that students that use these services tend to benefit from their career development pieces a lot more than students that perhaps don't use them. Then this means that planning must be efficient, targeted, and aligned with your lived experience. So this is important because if there's anything that we need to learn about you and how we can tailor the career center to be able to meet more of your needs, we would definitely like to hear about that and address that as much as possible. So what I did here is I tried to outline this presentation in a practical way that you could apply as soon as possible. And I broke it down into several steps. Don't worry, it's not too many. It's just one way to do this. There's many different ways that you could go about actually addressing this issue. But I want you to ask yourself, why did I return to graduate school at this stage of life? Or why did I return to school in general? What career problem am I trying to solve? That is very important. You know, when I graduated initially, it was very challenging for me because I was the first one in my family to go to college. I didn't really understand how the college environment worked. And I remember having to pick a major and having to decide between business computer information systems and computer science. And to me, as a first generation student, it meant one and the same. I thought, you know, anything computer related would involve programming, and so therefore I ended up not choosing either of them, and I ended up selecting a whole different route. So I want you to think about what motivates your moves. It's that awareness of specific majors, advancement, pivots, salary, stability, meaning, and impact. And really what I mean by pivot is there something going on in your life that you want to make sure that you address either through salary or stability, or do you need to pivot in terms of an industry? Maybe you were in the restaurant industry and you want to pivot to hospitality, something like that. And then what constraints matter in terms of location, flexibility, salary, anything is your salary floor lower than most people, or is it higher? You know, what are your expectations in terms of um, where you're willing to negotiate when it comes to salary ranges? Remote and hybrid needs, is there something that you need to take into account? So the key question here for you, and the key statement rather, is my graduate degree is helping me transition into what? So take a moment to reflect on that and really think about what the blank is for you. So now, step 2, this goes back to identifying your transferable skills. So if you don't already know what transferable skills are, let me give you a rundown. Essentially, these skills or anything that you can use in terms of communication, professionalism, critical thinking, any skill that you can take to move across roles and industries. And as a career coach, I see this a lot in our appointments. Students sometimes are confused about maybe what they bring to the table. And it's important that you hone into those skills and really understand what you have to offer. I'll give you a testimonial. One time I had a student who was very nervous, who was majoring in accounting. And she came to me because she didn't really know how to talk to people. She was concerned about her overall success when it came to internship recruitment time. For our accounting majors, they really have a strict timeline for looking for internships. And she couldn't really identify what her strengths were in terms of transferable skills. So one of the things that I recommended that's free to UNT students is to go to the orientation page and access the Strengths Finder assessment. Every student at UNT gets one free code. And so I asked her to do that. She did that. She learned a lot about herself from a strengths-based perspective, but I identified that during this specific interaction with her, she really did a good job of following up with the things that I asked. So much so that she also followed up on using our platform called Big Interview to practice interviewing. We know that students who use Big Interview are 400 times more likely to land a role than students that don't use it. And Big Interview is basically a platform where you can practice interviewing skills, both by competency and also by industry. So she leveraged that. Well, come to find out, a couple months passed by, and she emailed me and she said that she had landed a role with one of the big 4 accounting firms, which was KPMG, and no one thought this was possible. But the recruiter did. The recruiter said, I am looking for students that are coachable, who are willing to learn and do a good job of following up. Because if they follow up with me, then they're going to follow up with the clients that we work with. So I want you to think about, what is that one skill that you bring to the table? What are your sources of your skills? Is it workplace leadership? Is it student organizations, project and people management? Maybe you did some volunteering, caregiving, or some type of other service. I can tell you that for me, even as a professional, I still really relate to this. On the side, I lead a ESL program, so English as a second language program. And so I continue to refine the skills through community roles that are presented to me. Maybe you have some military experience. Maybe you have some graduate program projects that you really excel at. What are those class assignments? Are you keeping a copy of those? Are you throwing it away? So the insight here is employers hiring for early career and mid-career roles really prioritize critical thinking, communication, teamwork, and professionalism as essential skills. So that's at 96% plus. This is very important for you to understand, because we know that at the national level, students tend to underrate themselves when it comes to these skills, and then overrate themselves, and employers underrate your skills. So for example, when it comes to communication, you may say on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of communication, I'm at a 7. The employer may say, no, you're actually at a 5. And so understanding what your strengths are, how you can develop those, is key to your success. And I'm here to guide you through that process and define it a little bit more for you. So if you're finding something useful about this presentation that maybe you hadn't necessarily thought about or acted upon before, feel free to drop it in the chat. We would love to know what is useful, what do you like about the presentation, what are you learning, something that you feel really passionate about that you want to share with us to help us understand how you're thinking about this presentation. Step 3, understanding the labor market. That is very key. One of the things that I do with my accounting, business analytics, and business computer information systems students is that I actually walk them through the DFW Chamber of Commerce website, where it gives you up-to-date trends in terms of the labor market in general. Is it trending up when it comes to certain hard skills and technical skills? Or are you seeing more Python, more SQL, or are you seeing more agility or workflow automation? Those pieces are really important for a student to understand, because if you're going to have a job strategy, it needs to align with what the market is telling you and not what you think you need to tell yourself. Employers are shifting towards skills-based hiring with nearly 70% using it. Hiring for new graduates is flat, but long-term demand for college-educated talent remains strong. That means that you can still compete in this labor market. You can still excel in this labor market if you really understand the skills that employers are looking for. I will give you a quick tip. When it comes to technology as a skill, so earlier we mentioned critical thinking, professionalism, communication. There is a gap between how you define your rating and how employers define the rating in terms of percentages. But when it comes to technology, employers overrate you. So there's something to be said about how you leverage technology. And online students are specifically positioned and very well positioned to be able to capitalize on that and be more marketable in today's environment, because they understand technology. Maybe they've been using it for a while. Maybe they understand the ins and outs and they can speak to it a little bit better, or it's something that they just are used to. So even that experience alone gives you a lot of credibility when it comes to how you manage technology, how you use it. And if you go on and understand the labor market, you're putting yourself in a better position to be successful long term. Industries with growing openings requiring a degree, such as healthcare, government, public service, business, and professional services, they are all growing at the moment, right? But that doesn't mean that you, with your skills, don't necessarily can take that to another industry, right? You want to make sure that you leverage every skill you have, because as it says, skills-based hiring is something that it's really trending upwards. So as you can see on the screen, what this means for you, your degree plus your skill set is something that we need to leverage for advancement or pivoted in general. So just to give you a quick example, I was working in a higher ed institution for about 9 years. And I decided that after doing 9 years of higher ed, I was going to convince myself out of the industry. And so I went and did several odd industries and tried different things to try to convince myself that higher ed wasn't for me. And after doing that for about 2 to 3 years, including doing K through 12 education, I ended up coming right back to higher ed. And so understand what your interests are, understand what you're good at, and you will be able to design a plan for yourself that really works for you. So I want to pause here to see if there are any questions from our students. Dallas, maybe you can help me if they put something in the chat to guide me. So I'm going to give you just 10 to 15 seconds to ask a question or bring up a point that you would like to ask me as a career coach. And I like silence, so I don't mind waiting just a little bit more to break the ice.
You're better than me. I can always feel how awkward the silence is. But it doesn't look like anyone has any questions in the chat so far. There was just one person confirming that the presentation was going to be sent after the session, but oh, someone's typing.
We're going to give them 15 more seconds.
Sierra said, "You speak well, no questions to be had."
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that comment. So step 4, define your post-grad vision, choosing your direction. So I'll let you read through the slide. I won't read through every single thing here for you. Clearly, we'll get the slides after the presentation as well. But I really want you to think about beginning with the end in mind. Where do I want to end up? And how do I plan to get there? I want to be working as a what in the field of what? If you look at your resume development pieces, for example, one of the things that we like to make sure that we include on all of our resumes is a seeking statement. Where do you want to work? What role do you want to do? And by when, right? So is this a full-time role for the summer that you're seeking? Is it a part-time role that you're seeking? What is it? So being able to clarify that for an employer or recruiter is really important. So on a monthly basis, I talk to recruiters, and recruiters tell me time and time and again that when you don't include a seeking statement within the context of your resume, it really means that you're open to anything. And an employer doesn't like to see that because they think that if you apply to their company, you're just going to leave. So being really clear about what you bring to the table, why you're seeking that specific position, and then all the value-added pieces that you want to think about. So what is your expertise? What are you really good at? Are you bringing any certificates, graduate research pathways, etc.? Have you done any independent practice? Have you maybe perhaps decided to launch a startup of some kind? Really thinking about what you bring to the table is important. Through the UNT Career Center, you have access to LinkedIn Learning for free. With your UNT email, you have access to Coursera for free. There's even some micro credentials that you can get, not through necessarily us, but through our DSI Clear office, where you can get a micro credential in AI literacy, for example. So I want you to think about all of the resources and tools that are available and at your disposal, and how you can leverage them to make yourself the most marketable possible. So now we're getting to the analytical part of your process and your graduation, your post-grad planning. I want you to think about a target career that you have in mind. What is it? Maybe you want to put it in the chat. But think about the target career that you're wanting and the skills that it requires. Do you have them? as stated on bullet 2, do you need to upskill through LinkedIn and Coursera to make sure that you have them? Or are you going to invest in a certification after graduation? How are you going to identify the gap and fill it? That is very important. And have you taken into account coursework, electives, the micro-credentials that I talked to you about before? Do you have a capstone in one of your classes? How can you account for the skills that you're developing? And then how are you going to communicate those skills out to the world during the career fair? You know, one of the things that we have here at UNT is the All Majors Career Fair that's actually happening tomorrow. Going to the career fair is a very important part of being active in your career development. And so networking and mentorship opportunities that you can find are also important. We have a platform called Mean Green Mentors, where you can actually connect with UNT alumni that are interested in contributing to your education and your overall development as a leader. And I want you to think about a self project, maybe a hobby, maybe something that you do that you can convey to people where you've learned a skill. Anything that allows you to stretch your skills beyond just the typical skills development pieces. So that's something to consider as well. And then step 6, build your action plan. So building your action plan is not an easy thing to do because sometimes you're building your action plan even while you're employed. Because maybe when you think about beginning with the end in mind, where you start is not necessarily where you finish. So if you would have told me that I was going to end up back in higher ed after 3 to 4 years of being outside of higher ed, I wouldn't have believed you, because again, I wanted to convince myself out of higher ed. But now that I'm here, I am driven with more passion, more knowledge, and more programming experience to be able to deliver high quality services to our students. So one of the mistakes that I made is not clearly defining what my career goal was long term. And so when you think about career goals, you want to think about SMART goals, right? And so everyone has heard about SMART goals. So an example here is be promoted to senior analyst by June 2027. If you can break it down specifically to a statement, to a specific time in the future, and what steps you're going to do to get there, that's really going to help you solidify your vision for the future. And then I want you to think about the 5 to 7 skills that you need to strengthen. So for example, for me, let's say I wanted to be promoted to a director of some kind by June 2027. Maybe I need more programming development. Maybe I need more communication skills, professionalism, or critical thinking in order to reach that specific career goal. I need to identify them, upskill, and then be able to solidify and communicate that to the people making those hiring decisions. One of the things that I really like about LinkedIn Learning is that you can share those badges that you earn with, or those certificates via LinkedIn for others to see. And then people can endorse those skills. So when it comes to recruiters, it really gives them a place where they can identify certain skills that they're looking for and be able to reach out to you via LinkedIn or Handshake to be able to connect with you. And let me talk a little bit about Handshake, if you don't mind. If you don't already have a Handshake account, I will urge you to create one. I urge you to make sure it's updated. We do know that there's been some testimonials where recruiters are reaching out to you, and if you don't have your profile updated, it just makes it challenging for them to connect with you. So you also want to make sure you upload your resume to Handshake and make it public. So if it's not public, it's almost like it's not documented up there in the cloud. So you want to make sure that you engage with Handshake, that you follow people like you do with LinkedIn, and that your profile, as I said before, is updated. They are changing the interface on the Handshake platform to be a little bit more engaging. So that should help to be able to check it on a regular basis, etc. And then if you don't already have a LinkedIn, I urge you to create one, to develop it, to look at other LinkedIn profiles to be able to see what works for them that potentially may work for you. Because nowadays, the digital impression is just as important as the in-person impression. Another thing that we offer through the Career Center is we offer the all majors mock interviews. So if you have participated in the all majors mock interviews, feel free to let us know. But the all majors mock interviews essentially is a place where we bring in dozens of employers. We reserve Sage 260 and all of the suites in that area. And then you get to come in and you get to practice interviewing skills and also meeting the recruiters, which is just a byproduct of essentially interviewing with them. And so meeting the recruiters not once, not twice, 3 times, 4 times is key to establishing that relationship and moving your future forward. I want to pause here to see if there's any questions so far.
There's none in the chat so far. You may see me adding a bunch of stuff because every time you mention like a resource or something, I just add it in there. But it looks like Henry is typing right now.
All right, Henry, please keep typing away. I do want this presentation to be as interactive as possible so that way you get the most out of this experience. Continuing on with building your action plan, you guys, I can't stress the importance of joining a professional association, right? The career planning guide, once you actually are able to download it or I can send it to you, it gives you a step-by-step way to join a professional organization. So I'm going to pause here. Dallas has her hand raised, so I want to make sure I answer any questions that may be in the chat.
Yeah, so Henry asked, are there any virtual mock interviews with recruiters?
Yeah, during different times in the semester, we didn't offer it this semester, but we do have employers that are willing and able to do virtual mock interviews with you if you express that interest. So what I would want you to do is contact the Career Center, either in person or via email, and talk to a career coach for your specific college to see if that can be arranged. But if the employer is not available, career coaches are available to do mock interviews 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can schedule those appointments via Navigate. So when you go on Navigate, appointments, and then search for the Career Center, there will be a drop down that allows you to see who your career coach is for your specific college. You will click on that specific individual, find their availability, and request whether to have a mock interview via Zoom or in person, and then you will handle it that way. But yes, from time to time, we do offer virtual mock interviews, and we would love to get you plugged into that. And if it's not offered as a service that specific semester, I would encourage you to talk to your career coach to see how we can make that happen, because we have plenty of employers that are interested in doing that, even if it's as a ad hoc type experience.
So
And
it looks
so
like Jose
yes.
has a question in the chat. He said, is the professional association different from Mean Green Mentors?
Yes, it is different. So a professional association is something outside of UNT that is community-based. So Texas Young Professionals, for example, that is very important for non-traditional students. Some of those do include membership dues, etc. That is something that you'll have to decide whether you want to invest in or not. But it is really good for networking, especially if you're in a hospitality industry, tourism industry, but just really any industry in general. Joining at least one professional association is really important. And so there are many out there. Also, if you're not already familiar with the Mingly app, Mingly is a partner of the UNT Career Center. It is a networking app. It's completely free to join, and it tells you whether different organizations are meeting. It has events, and I actually have the CEO of Mingli coming to one of my workshops next week on the 15th, which I have a flyer to share with you after this. If you're interested in meeting her, she would love to meet you. But that just goes back to the importance of networking, which is point D on this slide as well. So great job with that question. If
He
you
did
have,
have, so he
yes,
did have a follow-up. Sorry to interrupt. He did have a follow-up question. Jose said, "Where can we find information on professional associations?"
yes. So that's a really good question. So every UNT student has access to Microsoft Copilot, and that's really the best way to find this in a very succinct way. So we're moving away from just a Google search to doing more AI type related things. And so I would encourage you to either go on Google or Microsoft Copilot and search for um, the top 5 professional organizations for this age range, for example, or by this major, and then give me the link or the source as to where I can join. That's one easy way of doing that, and I find that that is the most practical and most accurate way of doing that. If you have an opportunity to lead a project at work, oh, we have a question from Shelly. I would love to answer that question.
Hi, Ole, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, thank you so much for doing this presentation. I did have a question that kind of relates to what we're doing. Um, I hate that I missed your previous uh, presentation regarding the real world simulations. And I was just wondering, like now or after this presentation, would you mind talking more, just like a little bit about that and maybe recap what you guys did over there? Because I think
That's
that will
such
help us as well.
That's such a great question. Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit more about that because it's becoming something that we're moving to that I think will be useful for students to know about. So yes, the flyer towards the end of my session will remind me, and I would love to talk about that a little bit more. Attending industry conferences is also an important point. Thank you, Shelley, for that question. Attending industry conferences is key, you guys. So whether that is a UNT, whether that is a summit of some kind, anything that's free to join and you have the availability and are willing to go, please attend. The more people that you can add to your network, the better. In fact, if you haven't already connected with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so. I share a lot of job postings through LinkedIn. I can connect you with professionals through LinkedIn. And I would just enjoy the connection and tell you about some of these things that are happening. Um, and also seek a mentor. I think we were talking about that earlier, Mean Green Mentors. These UNT alumni are very committed to helping you navigate your experience. In fact, for the job simulation session that I'm doing on April 15th, just a small plug, the reason that I am doing that is because I believe that students can benefit from support throughout the entire undergraduate or graduate career. So I invite Mean Green Mentors to come out as you work on business cases and real world projects. And then for D, networking and branding, so important. I would say now more than ever. In fact, when I meet with recruiters on a monthly basis, they tell me that networking is by far one of the most underestimated um, uh, service or environments that you can think about or do as a way to get a role in the future. So updating your LinkedIn, making sure that your headline is clear, that it's authentic, is important. I think conducting 2 informational interviews a month with a Mean Green mentor would be useful as well. So informational interviews, sort of where you can reach out to a Mean Green mentor or even on LinkedIn, a UNT alumni, for example, and you just say, hey, I have 2 questions about the industry that I would really like to know more about. Can I talk to you for 5-10 minutes and ask you about what it's like working in the industry? That could be helpful for you, even if you are a current professional, because you'd be surprised how many of our UNT alumni just really like talking to you and talking about themselves. And so that is important and a good way to make connections as far as networking is concerned. And don't forget about your branding. right? Your digital impression, who you are, what you're about, what you have to offer. Being able to communicate that clearly is so important in this day and age. So, what is your brand? What is your perception of the skills that you bring to the table? And then, what do others say your brand is? And do your social media accounts align with your professional brand, or are they conveying a different story? I have a testimonial about that. Recently, I was talking to a colleague in a different industry who was launching a uh, therapy service, and she had no idea how to run social media. She is a licensed professional counselor, and she was trying to put her name out there, and she was just very scared to create videos and get herself out there. Well, after a couple months of getting some guidance from her supervisor, she decided to launch this Instagram account. And guess what? It worked. She started getting clients, private pay clients, etc. And so sometimes you just really have to believe in yourself, even more so than you do already, and connect with the right people, generate the right content, whether that's on your LinkedIn or social media accounts, to convey what you actually want to convey long term. So as we wrap up this presentation here very soon, I just want to talk a little bit more about communicating your professional brand, because oftentimes this gets overlooked. In fact, there's several really good courses on LinkedIn Learning about communicating your professional brand. I would encourage you to take those. I'd be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn and share the actual link to these presentations or these courses rather, that really help me also develop as a professional and be able to communicate my brand more effectively. So when you think about your professional brand, think about the elevator pitch framework. Who are you? Who are you now? Who were you then? What changed? So the person that I am now is very much different than 10 years ago. I knew that I reached a professional milestone in my life when I stopped trying to be like Steve Jobs and started to be like Olay and wanting to get other people to want to be like me. So your values are important, your strengths are important. And so understanding those like no other, having that presence when you come into a room is so important. What your experience is, any experience is a good experience. So I often run into students that try to eliminate some of their experience from their resume. In fact, I'll give you an example. I work a lot with accounting students. Accounting recruiters really want to make sure that any intern that comes into their company really has some sort of job or industry experience. But if they don't, they're just looking for any experience in general. Because if you can work and they don't have to train you how to work, you are a candidate. So then you can supplement that with job simulations. We have a platform called theforge.com where you can do free job simulations. These job simulations count as real world experience. They're in various industry, about 20 different industries. They take 3 to 4 hours to complete. And once you complete it, it gives you a certificate, a lot of the time signed by the human resources information officer or others. So thinking about how you can leverage those platforms is really nice. What is graduate school? What graduate school is adding? Think about how is it different than your undergraduate experience? What is it conveying? How can you integrate it into your repertoire of skills? And then what direction are you heading next? Could you answer that today if you were interviewing? Would it change? Could you do a good job of communicating that? Just think about that for a moment because it's more relevant than ever. So here's an example. I'm a project coordinator with 10 years of operation experience, now completing my master's in data analytics. I'm transitioning to roles that combine process optimization with evidence-based decision making. Notice that this specific example is very well written when it comes to not only the experience they bring to the table, but also the skills and how they help make decisions. And one of the key skills that we talked about earlier is critical thinking. If you can demonstrate critical thinking, then more than likely you're going to be good at making decisions. And so I want to highlight that as well. So step 9, leverage UNT resources. I talked earlier about how these services tend to be underutilized. I met with over 350 students this semester, and I would say about 45% of them were not even familiar with some of the resources that we have to offer through the UNT Career Center. Clearly, we have to do more when it comes to marketing our services, and promoting our services. But opportunities like this that Dallas and others are giving us or allowing us to communicate these resources in a clear way to you. We have the Forge, we have LinkedIn Learning, we have Coursera, we have Big Interview, among others. We offer UNT career coaching one-on-one and in group via Navigate. We do resume and LinkedIn reviews. You can even submit your resume for review through our online portal. We teach you the STAR method, situation, task, action, results, handshake career fairs, and employer events. UNT Career Center services are free for life. So that means even after you graduate from UNT, you can still come to our all majors mock interviews at any point in time. If you're making a transition, you can just schedule an appointment with us and we'll be happy to guide you. You know, it's interesting to me that when it comes to UNT and other colleges, and even in the professional world, you know, a lot of our athletes, for example, you know, they have coaches, they have coaching staff, and even when they go and get drafted, they have agents, etc. You know, I want all the students at UNT to have a coach too, right? That they feel comfortable, that they can reach out to, and even if it's just to talk about potential future options. So if we can be that support for you, great. If there's someone that fits you a little bit better, maybe a mean green mentor, maybe someone at a different college that you would like to kind of know because you're thinking about transitioning to the College of Music, or you're thinking about transitioning to the Information Systems College, etc., or Information Technology. You know, we want to make sure that you're supported in that way, regardless of what the college is or what the name is. We want you to know that we're here to support you. We want you to understand that LinkedIn Learning is specifically important because more recruiters are looking for people that are coachable more than ever. Um, Employers rate interview skills and demonstrated experience is most important during skills-based hiring. So remember this, the resume gets you the interview, but the interview gets you the job. So if we can help you interview better, then you have a really good chance at you know, continuing on your professional development that way. So here's a summary of your action plan. Review and refine your plan every semester. Track wins, accomplishments, grow your network intentionally. Keep aligning your skills with your direction. Closing message, right? Your graduate degree is just a credential. It's a catalyst for the next strategic chapter of your career. Being intentional about it is very, very important. So having a career coach to help you with that is also important. So this is just another plug for what we have to offer through the Career Center, career exploration, career prep, assessments, internship and job search coaching, interview preparation, and so forth. We do information sessions, tabling. For example, in the College of Business, we table almost every Tuesday and Wednesday. We bring employers. We have events, is the one that I'm going to talk about in just a minute, that are open to any major. So if you're interested in learning more, you can scan the QR code and we'd be happy to connect with you that way. Okay, so just real briefly, let me talk about why this is important. So last year when I started, I was driving down I-35 and I saw a billboard that said Eagle Nation. And I thought to myself, how can we have a nation without a city? And so I coined the term Eagle City here at UNT. And the idea is simple. We want to create infrastructure for you to succeed. You bring the ambition, we provide the infrastructure. And so what that looks like for you is I wanted to make sure that students had opportunities to develop their skills beyond what's available online. So on this specific day, I'm actually bringing an employer from uh, an AI consulting firm is coming to lead a business case. And this business case is really where you break down a problem that they encountered. You work in groups with people from different majors to um, learn cross-functional skills, cross-domain skills. Just because you major in accounting doesn't mean you necessarily know how human resources work. And so now this is the third time that I do this, and it seems to work really well for students. So if you're interested in coming to that, you're more than welcome. The question around the April 2nd event that we just did, I got a little bit creative with that because I wanted to bring in the College of Music to partner with the College of Business. And I designed myself a case geared towards the music industry from a business perspective. And so I am working really hard, you guys, to try to add value to any skills that you bring to the table by helping our career center move more from presentation-based experiences to interactive and experiential experiences. And so anytime that you see the Eagle City brand, that's open to any major. You can register on Handshake. Any presentation that we have for those specific workshops, you can request those by emailing the specific contact on Handshake, and we can send it your way. We don't want your physical presence to be a hindrance for experiencing or getting the information that you need to be successful in the future. So with that, that is all I have. Remember, the All Majors Career Fair is tomorrow. I would really like to hear back if you have any feedback. If you think our evaluation is a little bit too long, just send all the information to Dallas. We would love to hear what you think about the presentation and what we can do to help you even more. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And now I'm formally the career coach for accounting. So if you're an accounting major, business computer information systems, business analytics, or if you ever want to do some kind of pivot, I am here to help you, and you can schedule an appointment as well. So with that, Dallas, I don't have any further information, and I'm ready to transition it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Before we transition, I know Shelly had that question relating, I forgot exactly what it was, but Shelly, can you repeat the question that you were wanting further clarification on?
Yes, I was requesting if you could just recap what you guys talked about in that other session regarding the real world um, experience, a simulation.
Yes.
I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah. So since we have a little bit of minutes, is it okay, Dallas, for me to talk a little bit more in depth about that in like 2 minutes?
Yes, that's totally fine.
Yeah, so essentially what we did is we invited a panel of UNT alumni, uh, artists as well, and some recruiters. And we did a panel on cross-functional skills, so decision-making, communication, professionalism, and they talked a little bit about how that plays a part in the real world. And then what we did is I created a business case that I turned into a packet. We shared it with the students, and this was a mock case of a failed artist. And they had to work with teams of 4 or 5 to try to come up with a solution. Of course, there was no right or wrong, but they were able to put some of the key skills that they just heard about from the panel into practice. And then they had to develop an executive pitch to be able to present their solution to the audience. And so it really went it went well beyond my expectations. Our evaluation showed that it was great, and we hope to do that even more. So anytime that you see job simulation or experiential experience, it's really just what we're trying to do to create more opportunities for you to learn those skills. So that, in a nutshell, is sort of what we did.
All right, thank you so much. I always find I learn so many things about UNT when we offer and all things after I graduate. So it's always nice to learn, you know, now that I'm working with students. But I won't keep you guys for too much longer. I'll go back to the main page that had my millions of tabs that had the main presentation. Again, thank you so much for presenting today. Guys, if you ever want to learn more about what Career Center can offer, I dropped like a million different links in the chat, but I'll also send out a follow-up email to everyone with the presentation as well as the links that we discussed throughout this session. So on the screen is where you can keep in touch with OSC. And then if you have any sort of feedback or recommendations for future in flight, we have a QR code on the bottom right screen. Just love to hear back what we can improve for our session for next year. What are some things you might be interested in seeing us put on? But other than that, if you guys have any sort of questions, feel free to unmute yourself or just drop it in the chat. But I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. But anyone has a chance to ask any questions. If not, that is all I had on my end.
Thank you, everybody.
Again, I can never find the button. There we go. Stop recording.